The stars were not silent. They never had been. But for most of human history, no one on Earth could hear them. Humanity looked up at the night sky with wonder, but also ignorance. It was only in the last few decades that people began to understand. They were not alone. But being noticed didn't mean being respected. Out beyond the edge of known space, where Earth's reach was thin and its name unknown, humanity had been building something quiet and strong. Not empires, not armies, at least not yet, just survival, a place to grow, a chance to learn. And all of it started with a man named Eli Carter. Eli wasn't famous. He wasn't a general or a politician. He was just a former Marine who had traded in his uniform for a security badge and a low-paying job on a deep space mining station called Nova 9. Nova 9 floated near the edge of the Orion Belt, far from Earth's core systems. It was a rough place, cold, hard, full of people trying to escape their pasts or make a future worth having. Most were miners, engineers, or traders. A few were like Eli, people trained to fight but hoping they wouldn't have to. He spent his days walking the halls of the station, checking cameras, running drills, making sure nothing dangerous got inside and nothing valuable got stolen. Life was slow, boring even. But Eli liked it that way. Then everything changed. It started with a message. A signal came through late at night. No one saw it at first. The comms officer, a young woman named Maggie Lang, was off duty. Her replacement was tired and missed. Yet by the time someone noticed, the message had already played once and disappeared into the logs. It was short, just 6 words. Colony Delta 3 destroyed. No survivors. No one knew what to make of it at first. Colony Delta 3 was one of Earth's outermost settlements. Small, remote. Mostly scientists and farmers trying to grow food in artificial domes under alien skies. There was no reason for it to be attacked, unless someone finally decided to notice how far humanity had come. 2 days later, Nova 9 was hit. It wasn't a full-scale attack, not the kind you see in war movies. It was fast, silent. One moment, everything was normal. The next, half the power grid went offline, alarms blared, and smoke filled the lower decks. Eli was on duty when it happened. He grabbed his gear and ran toward the source of the explosion. His boots echoed against metal floors as he passed, stunned, workers and crying children. The station wasn't built for chaos. It was built for order. And now that order was breaking. He found the damage in Sector C, where the main reactor was housed. Smoke curled out from broken panels. Wires hung loose, like veins torn open. The emergency lights flickered red. Standing over the wreckage was a group of armored figures. Not pirates, not rebels. They wore dark suits, no insignia, no markings, only weapons, high-tech rifles, better than anything Eli had ever seen. He raised his pistol and shouted, "Freeze! Step away from the reactor!" The leader turned slowly. Their helmet hid their face, but Eli could feel their eyes on him. "You don't know what you're protecting," the voice said. Female. Calm. Eli didn't move. "I know enough to know you don't belong here." The leader tilted her head. Then, without warning, she raised her rifle and fired. Eli dove behind a console. The shot tore through the wall behind him, melting steel like butter. More shots followed. He returned fire, but his bullets barely scratched the armor. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They moved too fast, too precise. By the time backup arrived, the attackers were gone. So was the data drive from the station's central server. After the attack, the station went into lockdown. Everyone was questioned. Every camera feed was reviewed. But there were no clear answers. The attackers left no fingerprints, no DNA, no trace of where they came from, only questions. Why would anyone attack Nova 9? What were they looking for, and why now? Eli sat in the mess hall staring at his coffee. Maggie sat across from him, rubbing her temples. "I checked the logs again," she said. "That message about Delta 3? It wasn't sent by any Earth system. Someone forged it." Eli frowned. "So the colony wasn't destroyed?" "We don't know," she admitted. "We tried to contact them. Got nothing back. But if this message was fake, then whoever did this wanted us to think they were under attack. Eli leaned back in his chair. This wasn't a random strike, he said. They knew exactly what they were doing. Maggie nodded. They took something from the server, something important. Eli stood up. We need to find out what. Later that night, Eli accessed the station's maintenance logs. He wasn't supposed to be there, but rules didn't matter anymore. He scrolled through the files, searching for anything unusual before the attack. And then he found it, a hidden folder buried deep in the system, encrypted, military grade. He stared at the name, Project Echo, till his fingers hovered over the keyboard. He shouldn't open it, but something told him he needed to. With a deep breath, he typed in the override code. The file opened. Inside was a list of names, dozens of them, people stationed on other mining stations, research labs, orbital bases, all marked with codes and locations, maps, ship schematics, battle plans, plans for war. Eli's heart pounded. This wasn't just a mining station. This was a piece of something bigger, something secret, something that had been growing for years. He read on. The files talked about human-built ships hiding in uncharted space, AI networks watching alien traffic, hidden colonies built not for farming but for defense, for war. Eli closed the file and stepped back. All this time he thought humanity was still learning how to survive among the stars. But someone had been preparing, someone had been waiting, and now someone else had noticed. The next morning, Eli packed his things. He couldn't stay on Nova 9. Not after what he'd seen. He found Maggie in the docking bay. "You're leaving?" she asked. He nodded. "I've seen enough to know we're not safe here." She hesitated. "What are you going to do?" He looked at the small shuttle in front of him. "I'm going to find the truth." She handed him a data chip. "This has a copy of the file you found," she said. "I made it before the servers were wiped clean." Eli took it. "Thanks, Maggie." She smiled sadly. "Be careful out there." He gave her a nod and climbed aboard the shuttle. As the engines powered up, he looked back at the station. It was quiet again. Too quiet. But Eli knew the silence was ending. Humanity's rise had been quiet for a long time. Now someone had decided to make it loud, and the war had just begun. The stars didn't care who won or lost. They burned on, cold and distant, watching as the galaxy shifted under the weight of something new, something unexpected. Humanity had finally been noticed. And now, it was time to show what they were made of. Back on Earth, things were changing fast. In the capital city of New Haven, a woman named Nina Morales sat alone in a dark room filled with blinking lights and silent screens. She was an intelligence analyst, one of many working for the Office of Strategic Oversight, a government agency most people didn't even know existed. She wasn't a soldier. She never held a gun in combat, but she knew how to read data, like others read books, and what she was reading now scared her. The file Eli Carter had discovered on Nova 9 had reached her through a secure channel. Maggie Lang had sent it just before the station went dark again. At first, Nina thought it was fake, a hoax, but the more she looked, the more real it became. Project Echo Dawn wasn't just about defense, it was about preparation. Humanity had been building ships, not just mining vessels or exploratory crafts, but corn warships. Secret bases had been set up in uncharted space. Hidden colonies were not just farming outposts, they were military installations. Someone had known this moment would come. Someone had been planning for it. And now, someone else had seen it too. The Zalari hegemony. The most powerful empire in known space had responded to the attack on Nova 9 with silence at first. Then came the threats. They issued a formal statement calling Earth's actions reckless and warned that if any human force fired upon Zalari property again, they would respond with full force. But there was no official human fleet. Not yet. So, the Zalari assumed it was rogue elements, Pirates, terrorists, maybe even a faction within Earth's own fractured governments trying to start a war. They were wrong. Because the truth was, Earth's leaders had agreed long ago they wouldn't ask for permission to be taken seriously. They would earn it. Meanwhile, across the solar system, another person was getting ready to move. Daniel Reyes used to be a diplomat. Wore suits, shook hands, and smiled while saying things he didn't mean. That was his job. Now he was something else. He ran cargo between outer colonies, trading supplies, weapons, and sometimes people. He was good at staying off the radar, good at knowing where to go when trouble showed up. That was why Nina had reached out to him. She needed help, and she needed to disappear. Her apartment had already been searched. Her files had been deleted from the system. Someone wanted her to stop looking into Project Echo Dawn. She didn't plan to stop. She met Daniel at an old spaceport near the coast of Florida. The sky was gray and the wind smelled like salt and rust. "You're really doing this?" he asked, looking at the small bag she carried. "I don't have a choice," she said. "They'll come for me soon." Daniel studied her face. "They already did, didn't they?" She nodded. "They wiped my access. My name is gone from every system I ever worked on. If I stay, I disappear for real." Daniel sighed. "Then let's get you somewhere safe." They boarded his ship, the Silver Dove, a sleek transport vessel built for speed and stealth. It wasn't flashy, but it could outrun most patrols. As they lifted off, Nina looked down at the city below. Earth had always felt big to her. Now it felt small, too small, and the war hadn't even started yet. Far from Earth, hidden in the shadow of a dead moon, a fleet of human ships waited. They weren't marked with any national flags. They didn't carry Earth's colors. These ships had no official home. They were part of the Outer Defense Fleet. A secret armada built in deep space yards no one outside the highest levels of power had ever heard of. Commander Jonas Hale stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the Vanguard. He was older than most officers, with lines carved into his face by years of hard choices. He watched as reports came in from across human-controlled space. Nova 9 had fallen silent. Earth was in chaos. The Zalari were preparing for war, and the rest of the galaxy was starting to take notice. Behind him, a young officer stepped forward. "Sir, we've got confirmation. A Zalari patrol is moving toward the Epsilon Belt. They're scanning everything. Looks like they're hunting for something." Hale didn't look away from the screen. "They're looking for us," he said. "Or they will be soon." The officer hesitated. "What are your orders?" Hale turned slowly. "We give them what they're looking for." There was a pause. "You want to engage?" "I want them to understand," Hale said. "We're not hiding anymore." The battle came quickly. The Zalari patrol was made up of 3 ships, medium-class frigates lightly armed. They moved through the Epsilon Belt like they owned it, scanning asteroids, checking old mining stations. They found nothing until the ambush hit. Human ships dropped from cloaked positions, faster and quieter than anything the Zalari expected. Missiles lit up the void. Lasers cut through hulls like knives through paper. Within minutes, 2 of the Zalari ships were destroyed. The third tried to run. It never made it out. When the battle ended, the human fleet vanished again, leaving behind only wreckage and unanswered questions. Across the galaxy, news spread like fire. A human fleet had attacked a Zalari patrol. No warning, no diplomacy, just action. The message was clear. Humanity was done hiding. Back on Earth, protests broke out. Some people cheered. Others were terrified. Politicians scrambled to control the narrative. Some claimed the fleet was rogue. Others denied it even existed. But the footage had already leaked. People saw the battle unfold, saw human ships strike with precision, saw the enemy fall, and for the first time, some began to believe. Humanity could stand tall among the stars. They just had to fight for it. Eli Carter was still on the run. His shuttle had landed on a remote colony world called Tarsus Prime. A dusty, dry place where no one asked too many questions. He had hoped to disappear. but the war had followed him. One night, a man showed up at his door, tall, military stance, worn uniform. "Eli Carter?" the man asked. Eli didn't answer right. "Away." "Who's asking?" The man handed him a small device. "This is for you," he said. "From Commander Hale." Eli took it and activated the screen. Hale's face appeared. "We need you," the commander said. "You saw what we've built. Now it's time to fight for it." Eli stared at the screen. He had spent his life running from wars. Now he had one to join. On Tarsus Prime, Eli found other soldiers like him, former Marines, ex-intelligence agents, pilots who had flown in secret missions. They were all waiting for the order, waiting for the next move. And then it came. Word reached them through hidden channels. The Outer Defense Fleet was preparing for its next strike. Target: a major Zalari supply hub. The mission was simple: hit hard, hit fast, make them feel the cost of ignoring humanity. Eli stood with the others as the briefing began. Maps lit up the walls, weapons were checked, plans were laid, and for the first time in his life, Eli felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just survival anymore, this was victory. And humanity was going to take it. The war had started with a whisper. Now it was screaming. Across the stars, battles were breaking out like wildfires. Human ships struck fast and disappeared before the enemy could react. Zalari patrols vanished without warning. Supply lines were cut. Bases fell silent. But for all their victories, the truth was clear. This war would not be easy, and it would not come without cost. Eli Carter stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching as reports came in from the front lines. The last mission had been a success, too much of one. A human fleet had ambushed a major Zalari supply hub near the edge of the Andara Belt. They destroyed 3 cargo freighters, 2 fuel stations, and a command post. It was a heavy blow to the enemy, but something had gone wrong. One of the new prototype warships, the Sentinel, had taken a direct hit during the retreat. It tried to jump to hyperspace but never made it. It was gone. No survivors. Eli clenched his fists. He knew what that meant. People had died. Young recruits who barely understood what they were fighting for. Pilots who trusted the machines they flew. Officers who believed in the cause. All gone. Commander Hale stood beside him, arms crossed. "This changes things," Hale said. Eli nodded. "We lost good people." Hale looked at him. "No war is won without sacrifice. But we can't afford to lose our heads over it." Eli turned to face him. "Then tell me why I feel like we just took a step back instead of forward?" Hale didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked over to the main display and tapped a few keys. A map appeared. Dozens of red dots marked Zalari-controlled systems. Blue dots showed human positions. "The Zalari are regrouping," Hale said. "They're sending more ships. More weapons. They know we're serious now." Eli studied the map. "They'll hit harder next time." "They already have," Hale replied. "We've lost contact with 2 outer colonies. No response to distress calls." Eli felt a chill. "They're retaliating." Hale gave a slow nod. "And they're not holding back." Back on Earth, the mood was shifting. At first, people cheered when they saw footage of human ships winning battles. They liked seeing their species stand up for itself. But now the news was full of losses, colonies burning, families fleeing, Zalari warships appearing without warning and destroying entire settlements. Fear was spreading. In the city of Aft, New Haven, Nina Morales sat in a hidden safe house, staring at a screen filled with intercepted messages. She wasn't alone. Daniel Reyes leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You look tired," he said. Nina didn't take her eyes off the screen. "I haven't slept since we got this data." Daniel stepped closer. "What did you find?" She finally looked at him. "A secret archive," she said. "Buried under an old lunar base. I only just decrypted part of it." Daniel frowned. "What's inside?" Nina took a deep breath. Proof. Daniel waited. That Earth knew about alien life for centuries, she continued. Long before anyone admitted it. Long before we even launched our first real space missions. Daniel's expression changed. How long? Nina looked at him. Over 100 years. Daniel let out a low whistle. So we've been hiding this whole time? Pretending we were weak? Nina nodded. For survival. For strategy. To buy time. Daniel shook his head, and now the mask is gone. Nina stared at the screen, and people are paying the price. The truth began to leak. Not all of it, but enough. Whistleblowers came forward. Old files were hacked. Secret meetings were recorded. People found out that Earth's leaders had known about aliens for decades, that they had built weapons in secret, that they had trained soldiers no one ever saw. Some called it betrayal, others called it smart planning. Protests broke out across Earth. Some demanded peace talks. Others wanted full-scale war. Politicians argued. Soldiers prepared. Families packed. The world was splitting, and the galaxy watched. Eli was captured during a raid gone wrong. His team had been sent to retrieve intelligence from a Zalari outpost orbiting a dead planet. The plan was simple. Sneak in, grab the data, get out, but someone tipped off the Zalari. The moment Eli and his squad landed, they were ambushed. Grenades exploded. Lasers lit up the halls. Smoke filled the air. They fought hard, but it wasn't enough. Eli was the only one left standing when the Zalari soldiers dragged him into a dark cell. He woke up hours later, wrists bound, head pounding. A woman stood over him, tall, thin, cold eyes. She wore the uniform of the Zalari Intelligence Division. "You're not military," she said. "You're not even registered in any database." Eli didn't speak. She smiled. "But you know too much." Still, he stayed quiet. Days passed. They beat him, starved him, threatened him, but he didn't talk. And slowly, something changed. The guards stopped treating him like a prisoner. They started looking at him like he was something else, something dangerous, something worth respecting. Then, one night, a new face entered his cell, a woman in a lab coat. Her name was Marginar Dr. Lena Torres. She had been imprisoned for leaking classified research about advanced human tech. They had kept her locked away for months. Now she looked at Eli with sharp eyes. "You don't break," she said. "That makes you useful." Eli raised an eyebrow. "To who?" Lena smirked. "To us." Together they planned an escape. Lena had access to parts of the station's systems. She had been studying the security patterns for weeks. Eli used what he remembered from past missions. They moved at night. Silent steps, broken locks, false alarms. By the time the guards realized what was happening, Eli and Lena were already in a stolen shuttle, speeding away into the void. Behind them, the prison station exploded in a cloud of fire and metal. They didn't stop until they reached the edge of human space. There, a small fleet was waiting. Commander Hale greeted them personally. "You made it," he said. Eli nodded. "We brought something with us." He handed Hale a data drive. Lena spoke up. "It has everything we stole from the Zalari. Their battle plans, their weaknesses, everything." Hale looked at the drive, then at Eli. "You ready for the next fight?" Eli didn't hesitate. Always. Back on Earth, the protests grew louder. People demanded answers. Why hadn't they been told the truth? Why had Earth chosen war? Nina and Daniel arrived in New Haven after escaping another close call. They went straight to the resistance. Not a political group, not a protest movement, a real one. Scientists, engineers, former soldiers. Civilians who refused to sit back and watch their world burn. They met in underground bunkers, sharing secrets, building weapons, preparing for what was coming. Daniel stood in front of a crowd of people. "We can't wait for politicians to decide. What happens next?" he said. "We either fight for our place among the stars or we die trying." The room erupted in cheers. Outside, the sky burned with lights from distant ships. The war was here. and humanity was ready. As the stars watched, the battle lines were drawn. Humanity had risen from silence. Now they had to pay the price. And the cost would be high, but they would not fall. They would rise, even if it meant losing everything. Because now there was no turning back. The mask was gone, and the galaxy would remember the day humans stopped hiding and started fighting. The galaxy was watching, not just the Zalari, not just Earth, everyone. Humanity had gone from being ignored to being feared. Now it was time to be respected. But respect didn't come from strength alone. It came from choices, from action, from standing tall when others tried to knock you down. And for the first time, the stars were beginning to see what humans could do, not just in battle, but as a people, as a force that could shape the future. Eli Carter stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, staring at the tactical display. New reports were coming in. The Zalari had launched another wave of attacks against human colonies. They weren't just fighting anymore. They were trying to erase humanity's presence from space. Eli clenched his jaw. He turned to Commander Hale. "We can't keep losing ground like this," he said. "We need to strike back, and we need to do it now." Hale nodded slowly. "I agree. But if we go in blind, we'll lose more than we gain." Eli looked at the map again. There was one place where the Zalari were weakest, a system called Corvex 7. It was deep in enemy territory, but it held something valuable, a major intelligence hub. If the humans could take it, they would get access to encrypted files, battle plans, and even internal communications between Zalari leaders. It was risky, but it might be their best chance. "We hit Corvex 7, Eli said. "Hard and fast." Hale studied him. "You think we can pull it off?" Eli gave a small smile. "We don't just pull things off," he said. "We make them happen." Back on Earth, Nina Morales sat in a hidden command center beneath New Haven. She was going through data from the stolen Zalari files. Daniel Reyes walked in with a cup of coffee. "You've been up all night," he said. Nina barely looked up. "This changes everything," she said. "The Zalari aren't just fighting us, they're afraid of us." Daniel frowned. "Afraid? Of us?" Nina pointed at the screen. "They know we're not just surviving. We're learning, adapting, growing stronger every day." Daniel leaned over her shoulder. "What else did you find?" Nina scrolled down. "Their military is divided. Some want peace talks. Others want full-scale genocide." Daniel let out a slow breath. "That's not good." "No," Nina agreed. "But it gives us an opening." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "An opening for what?" "To break them from the inside." Daniel looked at her. "You're talking about diplomacy." Nina nodded. "We need allies, not just ships and weapons, but real support from other species." Daniel sighed. "Most of them already hate us or fear us." Nina smiled slightly. "Then we show them we're not just fighters. We're builders, protectors, friends." Daniel shook his head. "It won't be easy. Nothing ever is," she said. "But we have to try." Far from Earth in the outer systems, the Vanguard dropped out of hyperspace near Corvex 7. The station orbiting the planet was massive, half military base, half research lab. Zalari guards patrolled the decks. Cameras watched every corner. Security was tight. Perfect. Eli led the team. They moved fast. Silent boots, cloaked suits. No lights. They slipped inside through a maintenance hatch and split into two groups. One went for the control room. The other went straight for the data vault. Eli was in the second group. They reached the vault without incident. Inside were thousands of files, battle plans, secret meetings, intercepted messages. Lena Torres worked quickly, copying everything onto a secure drive. Minutes passed. Then alarms blared. They'd been found. Eli raised his weapon. "Let's move." Gunfire erupted. Zalari soldiers rushed in. Lasers cut through the air. Smoke filled the halls. Eli took cover behind a console and returned fire. Lena ducked beside him. "We're not going to make it out clean," she said. Eli grinned. "Never do." Just then, a voice crackled through his earpiece. "Commander Hale here. Extraction is ready. Eli tapped his mic. We're heading for the east hangar. Copy that. Be quick. They fought their way through the station, blasting doors open, dodging enemy fire. By the time they reached the shuttle, half the building was on fire. They jumped aboard. Engines roared. The ship lifted off. Behind them, the station exploded in a ball of fire. Eli looked out the window. Mission complete. And they had everything they needed. Back on the Vanguard, Hale reviewed the stolen files. He sat with Eli and Lena in the war room. This is huge, Hale said. These files confirm what we suspected. The Zalari are weak. Their empire is cracking. Eli leaned forward. What do we do with it? Hale looked at him. We use it to turn the tide. Meanwhile, on a neutral colony world called Verdun Prime, preparations were underway. It was a peaceful place, far from the war, but now it was hosting the first human-led galactic summit. Nations across the stars had been invited. Some came out of curiosity, others came out of fear, and some came just to watch humanity fail. Nina and Daniel arrived days before the summit. They met with diplomats, traders, and leaders from other species. Some were polite, others refused to shake their hands. But Nina stayed strong. She spoke with passion. She showed proof of what the Zalari were doing. She offered peace, not submission, not weakness, but partnership, equality. She stood in front of a crowd and said, "We didn't come here to rule. We came here to stand beside you as equals." The room fell silent. Then someone clapped, then another. Then the whole hall filled with applause. For the first time, humanity wasn't just fighting its way into the stars, it was earning its place. But not everyone liked what they saw. During the summit, an assassination attempt was made on Eli. He was walking through the main hall when a man approached him, smiling, friendly. Then he pulled a gun. Eli reacted fast. He grabbed the attacker's arm. They struggled. The gun fired once, missed. Eli slammed the man into the wall. Security swarmed in. Later, they found out the attacker was part of a radical anti-human group, funded by rogue Zalari officers. They wanted to stop the summit. They wanted to kill any hope of peace. But they failed, because the summit continued, and the message spread. Humanity was here to stay. On the battlefield, the war shifted. With the stolen intel, the human fleet struck hard. They destroyed key supply lines, took over enemy bases, cut off entire fleets. And for the first time, they weren't fighting alone. The Virexian, a warrior race once enslaved by the Zalari, joined the fight. Their leader, Kelthar, had once fought against Eli during a raid. Now he stood beside him. "You earned my respect," Kelthar said. "So I will fight with you." Eli nodded. "Glad to have you." Together, they launched a massive assault on the Zalari homeworld. Dozens of ships, hundreds of soldiers. It was the biggest battle of the war. And when it ended, the Zalari surrendered. They couldn't hold on anymore. Their empire was broken. Their leaders fled, and for the first time in history, the galaxy had a new power: humanity. After the war, the galaxy changed. Peace talks began. Treaties were signed. Refugees were welcomed. Old enemies became allies. And for the first time, humans weren't hiding. They were leading. Eli returned to a quiet moon far from the stars. He wanted rest. But he knew the story wasn't over. Nina worked with the new human conquered, helping build trust between species. Daniel traveled between worlds, spreading the word. Humanity was here. And the stars? They burned brighter than ever, because now they shone for everyone, even the ones who once lived in silence. The stars were quiet again, but this time it wasn't silence born of fear or hiding. It was peace, not perfect, not easy, but real. Humanity had fought for its place among the stars, and now they were here to stay. Eli Carter sat on the edge of a cliff looking out at the red sky of the moon he now called home. Behind him, the small cabin he'd built stood against the wind. In front of him, the stars burned like fire. He didn't miss the war, but he did miss the people, the ones who had fought beside him, the ones who hadn't made it back. They were gone. But their fight wasn't forgotten. He reached into his coat and pulled out an old data chip. It held messages, names, records of every soldier, pilot, and civilian who had given everything so Earth could stand tall among the stars. He tapped the side of it. "Rest well," he whispered. "You earned it." Back on Earth, the city of New Haven was alive with light. The newly formed, human-conquered Eden had set up its central headquarters there, a place where humans and other species could come together, talk, trade, and build something better. Nina Morales stood on the balcony of the main building, watching as ships landed and diplomats walked through the gates. She wore a simple jacket, no medals, no titles, just a woman who had helped change history. Daniel Reyes walked up beside her. "You look tired," he said. She smiled. "I always am." He looked around. "Feels different now." "It is," she said. "We're not just surviving anymore. We're leading." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You sure we're ready for that?" Nina turned to face him. "We never were," she said. "But we learned fast." Daniel chuckled. "That's one way to put it." Inside, meetings were already underway. Plans for new colonies, agreements with alien nations, treaties signed in peace, not blood. It wasn't perfect. Some still feared humanity, some still hated them, but more wanted to work with them than fight. Them. That was a win. A big one. Across the galaxy, things were changing. On Verdun Prime, the site of the first human-led galactic summit, a new school had opened. Children from different species sat in the same classrooms. They played together, laughed together, learned each other's languages. One day, a young Virex boy asked his teacher, "What were humans like before the war?" "Thurinthi." Teacher smiled. "They were like us," she said. "Scared, angry, trying to find their place." The boy thought for a moment. "But now they're strong." The teacher nodded. "And kind." Back in deep space, Commander Jonas Hale stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, looking at the latest reports. Human ships patrolled peaceful systems. Colonies grew. Trade routes opened. Peace held. For now. Hale turned to his XO. "How are the border defenses holding?" The officer checked his screen. "All clear. No threats detected." Hale gave a slow nod. "Good." He looked out the window. Stars stretched forever. Humanity had gone from being invisible to being everywhere, and it had cost them too many lives. Too much pain, but they had done it. Together, he stepped forward. "Set course for Earth," he said. "Time to come home." On Tarsus Prime, Eli received a message. It came from the human Concord. A request. They needed him. Not for war. For something else. He read the message twice. Then he closed his eyes. He had promised himself he was done fighting. But maybe there was another way to serve. Maybe not with weapons, but with words, with truth, with leadership. He stood up, grabbed his coat, and walked toward the shuttle pad. Weeks later, on the surface of a new colony world called Nova 7, Eli stood in front of a crowd. Hundreds of people had gathered. Humans, aliens, refugees, soldiers, farmers, engineers, all of them waiting to hear what he had to say. He didn't speak right away. He looked at them all. Then he began. "We weren't born to rule the stars," he said. "We were born to reach for them." The crowd listened. We were ignored. We were underestimated. We were attacked. He paused. But we rose. Murmurs spread through the crowd. "We fought not just for ourselves," he continued, "but for everyone who wants a future free from fear." He looked at a group of children standing near the front. "We don't want war," he said, "but we won't run from it." He took a deep breath. "We are humans. We are not perfect, but we are strong. And we are here. Silence followed. Then someone clapped, then another. Then the whole crowd erupted into cheers. Back on Earth, Nina stood with Daniel as they watched the speech on a large screen. Daniel smirked. He's good at that. Nina nodded. He always was. Daniel leaned against the railing. So what now? Nina looked out over the city. We keep going, she said. We keep building, keep learning, keep proving we belong. Daniel sighed. Sounds like a lot of work, she smiled. It is. He looked at her. But it's worth it. She met his eyes. Yeah, she said. It really is. As the stars burned above, humanity stood tall, no longer hiding, no longer asking permission. They had earned their place, not just through war, but through courage, through sacrifice, through unity. And now, the galaxy would remember, humans had risen, and they were here to stay, forever among the stars.